In the vast expanse of North America lies a treasure trove of energy resources. Canada, with its bountiful oil, natural gas, and minerals, has long served as a vital safety net for the United States economy. But looming tariffs and shifting trade dynamics could upend this delicate balance. With the United States' imposition of a 25% tariff on Canadian goods, Canada is now eyeing new horizons in the European Union and Asian markets. What does this mean for the United States? Could America's grip on energy dominance falter if it loses its biggest supplier so close to home? As President Donald Trump's trade threats cast shadows over cross-border relations, Canada's resolve is hardening. This sudden pivot towards global markets lights a fire in the trade arena. What if low-cost heavy oil, ample natural gas, and essential minerals begin flowing to Europe and Asia instead of the U.S.? Might Washington's development ambitions falter? The evolution of Canada's energy strategy has introduced a new chapter in this complex tale of international trade. In recent years, energy markets have seen significant upheaval. With rich reserves beneath its surface, Canada is a linchpin in North American energy trade. Dependence on Canadian oil and gas continues to grow, especially for U.S. refineries thirsty for heavy crude. Canada has become a formidable ally, meeting over 50% of U.S. oil imports, and almost all the natural gas that energizes American homes and industries flows from north of the border. However, whispers of a protectionist shift from Washington raise questions about this essential partnership. Could it be that Canada, spurred by tariffs, is prepared to march into a new era? By 2025, its leaders seek to raise exports beyond the borders of the U.S. by 50%. The European Union, as a major economic power, presents enticing opportunities. There's hope in the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, CETA, a pivotal deal that promises Canadian businesses easier access to European markets, promising to reshape trade dynamics forever. Yet, challenges linger in harmonizing this agreement, with several EU nations dragging their feet on ratification. As Canada navigates these treacherous waters, marked by Trump's trade war maneuvers, the stakes are undeniably high. If successful, a diversified trade portfolio could bolster Canada's economy and reduce its reliance on the U.S. market, but what repercussions might this have for American consumers? Higher energy costs and potential supply uncertainties could emerge as direct consequences. As both nations stand at a crossroads, one question looms: how essential is Canada in the grand scheme of U.S. energy strategy? With integrated energy systems and a shared commitment to reducing OPEC dependence, Canada is more than just a neighbor, it's a cornerstone of American energy security. Moving away from Canadian resources would require a strategic overhaul that could come at a cost, raising fears of supply disruptions and geopolitical risks. The deeper implications of this energy relationship reveal a complex web. Canadian oil exports not only stabilize American prices but also position the U.S. to extend its energy reach to global allies like Japan and South Korea. The recently expanded Trans Mountain Pipeline tripling Canada's shipping capacity could be a game-changer. As they attempt to fortify their positions in a rapidly changing global landscape, both nations must consider the far-reaching impacts of their decisions. Can you imagine a world where Canadian energy no longer flows south? As the drama unfolds, one thing is certain: the decisions made today will ripple through economies and communities, redefining what it means to be global energy partners in an unpredictable future. Will Canada adapt successfully, or will the United States find a way to reassert its energy dominance in the face of this seismic shift? The answers lie ahead, shrouded in uncertainty but filled with immense potential for those who dare to navigate the challenges. The announcement of a looming 25% tariff on Canadian goods has sent shockwaves through North America. This unexpected move has forced Canada to turn its gaze towards the European Union and Asian markets to diversify its energy exports. Canada, already the largest supplier of energy to the United States, plays a crucial role in America's energy landscape. The question is, how will this shift reshape the powerful dynamics of global oil and gas trade? Traditionally, energy has been the backbone of trade between Canada and the United States. Though the U.S. is a powerhouse in oil and gas production, the nation heavily relies on Canada for the heavy crude oil that fuels its refineries and powers homes. In fact, more than 50% of U.S. oil imports come from Canada, along with nearly all the natural gas that warms American households. This mutual dependency emphasizes Canada's importance as a critical partner in maintaining U.S. energy security and price stability. But as President Trump's sudden tariff threats create tensions, political leaders in Canada are scrambling to adapt. An urgent pivot toward international markets is underway. Canada aims to increase its exports to non-U.S. destinations by a staggering 50% by 2025. The intrigue surrounds whether the European Union, as one of the globe's largest economies and its second-largest trading ally, can fulfill this ambition. On the surface, the Canada-European Union Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement seems like a golden opportunity. This trade pact, signed in 2016, eliminated tariffs on a variety of goods and services, providing Canadian firms entry into the vast European market. Yet, despite its potential, challenges abound, as ratification remains stuck in political limbo across several EU member states. Apathy, territorial concerns, and the fallout from Brexit complicate matters further, creating an uncertain road ahead. What happens next? Will Canada succeed in expanding its energy export base, or will it remain tethered to U.S. dominance? The stakes are high, and a shift toward Europe and Asia could mean the end of an era of American energy preeminence, with potential repercussions for U.S. consumers facing higher energy prices and uncertainty. As the global energy landscape faces seismic shifts, will Canada emerge as a new powerhouse, or will the U.S. find a way to reaffirm its position? The answers lie in the looming uncertainties of trade negotiations and geopolitical maneuvers, leaving everyone on the edge of their seats. Previously, we saw how the pact between Canada and the European Union promised a golden escape from reliance on the U.S. market. This deal, signed in 2016 by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and EU officials, was hailed as a game-changer for Canadian business, but its full power remains locked behind a ratification barrier. The agreement entered provisional use, wiping out tariffs on almost all goods crossing the Atlantic. It didn't stop there. It opened doors for Canadian and European firms to bid on government contracts across all 27 EU member states, tapping into a colossal market valued at $3.3 trillion. Imagine the surge in Canadian exports if this promise became reality. Yet, shadows loom. Ratification is stalled, tangled in political webs within Europe. 10 countries, including Italy, Ireland, and Poland, haven't signed. Their hesitations are a hotbed of resistance fueled by fears over national sovereignty. Some worry the dispute settlement process hands too much power to corporations. Others fret over diluted food safety standards and threats to local farmers. Apathy slinks through some parliaments, ratification simply doesn't top their list. And then there's Brexit. The UK, once a leading backer and early signatory, has left the EU, complicating the landscape. Canada and the United Kingdom have temporarily agreed to honor the deal's terms, but only until a separate bilateral trade pact is hammered out. Amidst these tensions lurks a pressing question: with U.S. threats of a trade war simmering, can Canada and the EU accelerate this deal's final push? Business is counting on this lifeline brace for the future. But what if Canada's shifting energy exports, once destined mainly for America, detour through Europe and Asia instead? Will the United States face a jolt? Losing favored access to Canadian energy could destabilize America's supply chain. Could it push energy costs higher, casting a shadow over reliability? And if Canadian exports diversify away from its southern neighbor, will Washington's leverage in global energy trade erode? The answers ripple far and wide. The clock ticks. Canada's next moves could redefine North American energy politics. But will the United States stand ready, or be caught off guard? The unfolding story teeters on the edge of transformation, and the stakes have never been higher. Could you imagine a world where Canada, once a steadfast energy ally to the United States, turns its back and redirects its vast wealth of resources to Europe and Asia? What could that mean for the U.S. economy and its energy security? This shift could spell doom for America's privileged standing in affordable energy supplies. With the looming shadow of tariffs, Canada is eyeing new markets with intent. As the United States grapples with uncertainty and potential price hikes, the Canadian strategy becomes clearer. They've begun sealing new commodity agreements, eyeing diversification as a lifeline from dependency. But can Canada secure the energy landscape without alienating its largest trade partner? It's a precarious game of diplomacy, as Canada's need for a robust response to U.S. tariffs grows urgent. Imagine the ripple effect. As Canada shifts its gaze, President Trump's tariffs might inadvertently catalyze an economic revival in the North. Canada could emerge not just as an energy supplier but as a powerhouse in innovation and investment. This could lead to a surge in productivity and job creation. But there are challenges ahead. How can Canada navigate the treacherous waters of global trade while ensuring that its domestic market does not falter? The urgency of this diversification becomes even more apparent with the 25% tariffs affecting steel and aluminum imports. Canada must ramp up production and expand exports not only to maintain its market position but to ensure sustainability in an ever-evolving economical landscape. This isn't just a battle for trade, it's a fight for economic survival. And here's where it gets intricate. Washington, recognizing the strategic importance of Canadian resources, could find itself in a bind. With tariffs on energy set as low as 10%, the American economy may unwittingly be signaling Canada to bolster its bargaining power. If this trend continues, how would it reshape the North American energy landscape? In this new reality, the stakes are high. Canadian oil and gas exports aren't just a lifeline, they're the backbone of U.S. energy stability. As the threat of supply disruption looms, will the two nations be forced to rethink their economic ties, or will the lure of global markets lead Canada away for good, potentially jeopardizing the balance of power? The next move is critical. Will Canada lean into its resource strength, or succumb to the pressures brewing south of the border? The world watches, and the future remains uncertain. The stakes have never been higher in the energy arena. As whispers of impending change ripple across North America, the questions arise. What if Canada turns its back on the U.S. in favor of promising European and Asian markets? The land of maple syrup and snow-capped mountains is rich in oil, natural gas, and critical minerals, essential not only to themselves but as a lifeline to their southern neighbor. But will this shift be a glow of opportunity or a storm cloud of chaos? In light of new tariffs imposed by the U.S. president, Canada's energy strategy is evolving rapidly. Instead of relying solely on American imports, Canada is now eyeing expansive markets abroad, driven by a bold ambition to increase its non-U.S. exports by 50% by 2025. The European Union and Asia present vast opportunities, but will they be enough to counterbalance the potential fallout from America's ever-tightening tariffs? As the rumble of heavy machinery echoes through the oil fields, one must ponder, what if the United States loses its access to this abundant energy source? Higher prices at the pump, uncertainty in supply chains, and the relegation of the U.S. to a less favorable bargaining position hang in the air like the scent of oil drifting from a freshly drilled well. The stakes are tangible, and America's energy independence is on the line. Currently, Canada supplies almost 60% of America's natural gas and more than 24% of its crude oil imports. The fact that these crucial supplies have become part of a larger geopolitical game is unsettling. What happens when Canadian heavy crude, transported through intricate pipelines, becomes the target of new tariffs? The fear of falling into the clutches of political uncertainty looms large. Would America turn to volatile regions like Venezuela or the Middle East? In an unexpected turn, the expansion of the Trans Mountain Pipeline has tripled Canada's ability to export oil to tidewater markets, ensuring that nations like South Korea and Japan remain dependent on Canadian energy. But can Canada continue to support its allies while juggling the demands from Washington? As the lights flicker in bustling data centers across the United States, we must consider the urgent reality of growing energy demands. The United States grapples with maintaining domestic production while aiming to extend its influence globally. Collaboration with Canada is not just beneficial, It is crucial for energy security in an evolving world where the quest for reliable sources grows more complicated. Every twist in this narrative deepens the intrigue. With odes of potential alliances written against the backdrop of international trade, will the world be dramatically reshaped in the veins of cooperation, or will it fracture under the weight of tariffs and nationalistic pursuits? The answers lie shrouded in the future, with each passing day bringing new challenges and opportunities for a partnership that has weathered many storms. Stay tuned for how this energy saga unfolds, as the stage is set for both nations to either rise together or unravel into chaos. What can predictions of conflict and cooperation teach us about the vulnerability and resilience of global energy markets? As the story continues, the world watches, breath held and ears tuned, for what could be monumental changes in the balance of power. In a world where energy is power, Canada stands as a monumental giant, rich in resources that fuel the North American economy. Imagine a vast landscape filled with oil fields, natural gas reserves, and mineral wealth. These riches serve as a safety net for the United States, but a seismic shift looms on the horizon. With policies hitting hard, what does the future hold for North America's energy balance? When U.S. President Trump imposed tariffs on Canadian goods, it sent shockwaves through the Canadian economy. But instead of shrinking in fear, Canada saw an opportunity, a chance to expand its horizons toward Europe and Asia. Could this pivot threaten U.S. dominance in energy? One thing is certain, as Canada looks abroad, the very foundation of energy security in North America could tremble. Picture this, heavy oil and natural gas from Canada flowing not south but overseas to eager markets in Europe and Asia. What would happen if the U.S. lost its most significant energy partner? Experts warn that such a transfer could destabilize the economic landscape, causing energy prices to spike and exposing America's vulnerabilities. The notion of relying on foreign oil from less friendly nations suddenly becomes less appealing. The forward-thinking Canadian government strategizes to boost exports to non-U.S. markets by an astonishing 50% before 2025. The ambitious comprehensive economic and trade agreement with the European Union promises a wealth of opportunity, an antidote to tariff ills. Yet, there lies a hurdle. The ratification process is mired in opposition, and the clock is ticking. But things are escalating, and America, noticing Canada's moves with apprehension, warns of tariffs. Will Canada be forced to play nice, or will it chart its own course in the energy realm? This urgency magnifies the complexity of trade. Canada's resource abundance offers an exceptional power play, enough to catalyze a significant shift in energy reliance. As the Trans Mountain Pipeline expands, Canada transforms into a critical supplier for allies like South Korea and Japan, aiming to fortify ties while ensuring domestic strength. However, the stakes rise, competition for energy supremacy is fierce, and the very essence of geopolitical stability is at risk. Can Canada's natural gas exports stand against the spikes in U.S. demand over the next 2 years? The story grows richer as we explore potential growth for Canadian liquefied natural gas, LNG, exports. As the global energy landscape shifts, could Canada's foray into sustainable energy production redefine not just its economy, but also its role in international relations? The implications are profound and urgent. With energy security teetering, the time for strategic moves is now. Can Canada lead with innovation, or will it succumb to the pressures of its powerful neighbor? The question lingers, what does the future hold for Canada and its energy savvy? Will it reshape the global stage or falter in the face of looming tariffs? A hidden truth lurks behind North America's oil fields. More than half of the United States' daily gasoline comes from a neighbor that may soon reroute its black gold to Europe and Asia. What would happen to America's fuel prices if the pipeline that has long fed its heartland is cut off? The shock is real, and the stakes are higher than anyone imagined. Summary: Canada, rich in oil, natural gas, and minerals, has long acted as a safety net for its southern neighbor, supplying cheap heavy crude, abundant gas and essential metals. Recent U.S. tariff threats have forced Ottawa to look east and south, eyeing European ports and Asian refineries. This pivot could reshape the global energy balance. The United States has leaned on Canada for more than 50% of its oil imports and almost all of its natural gas inflow. Heavy crude slides through cross-border pipelines straight into Midwestern refineries, while Canadian gas fuels power plants from coast to coast. With tariffs looming, 25% on most Canadian goods and 10% on energy, Washington's protectionism nudged Ottawa toward the comprehensive economic and trade agreement with the European Union and new deals across the Pacific. The EU represents a $3.3 trillion market. Asian economies crave clean, low-cost resources. If Canada redirects its exports, American consumers could see pumps climb and strategic leverage wane. Summary: the United States now faces a dilemma: cling to an increasingly politicized partnership or scramble for alternative supplies. Its own reserves are abundant, yet data center demand for AI and high-tech manufacturing strains the grid. A sudden loss of Canadian heavy crude would force refineries to seek pricier, geopolitically risky oil from the Middle East or Venezuela, inflating costs and exposing national security. Canada's answer lies in diversification. By expanding the Trans Mountain Pipeline, it has tripled its capacity to ship oil to tidewater terminals, feeding allies like South Korea and Japan. Natural gas exports already cover 9% of U.S. consumption and could rise as domestic demand outpaces supply within 2 years. 6 West Coast LNG projects, including the forthcoming LNG Canada Phase 1, aim to deliver over 6 billion cubic feet per day, catapulting Canada into the top 5 global LNG exporters. Meanwhile, clean electricity from Quebec's new transmission line promises to cover 20% of New York City's power needs, shaving billions off future electricity bills. Summary: the energy web intertwines the two nations so tightly that untangling it would be costly and time-consuming. Yet the strategic calculus is shifting, and the next move could reshape global power. Final twist: if Canada's energy flows pivot eastward, the United States might lose its cheapest fuel source just as it races to power AI-driven factories and massive data farms. Could this spark a new era of American energy independence, or will it expose the continent to a fresh wave of foreign influence? The answer hangs on the next trade pact, the next pipeline, and the next tariff, making the future of global energy security more uncertain than ever before. Will the North American alliance survive the scramble for power?